podcast. I am your host Q, and I'm joined by my co-host Ulric. And welcome to episode 2, NBA Buyouts Galore. We will talk buyouts towards the second half of today's episode, but let's kick things off. These are two Bitcoiners talking about basketball, so it wouldn't be complete if we didn't, dunk on some shitcoiners. Am I right, Ulrich? Especially a Celtic shitcoiner.
It's the perfect thing for LA Bitcoiners to find a way to dig into these Celtic diehards. It's got to be a cringe moment for the Celtic Bitcoiners out there.
Yeah, I'm talking about you, Mark Goodwin. But it looks like your boy Paul Pierce is going to pay $1.4 million to settle with the SEC over allegations that he promoted Ethereum Max without disclosing that he had been paid $244,000 in Ethereum Max tokens. Damn, that's a good chunk out of Paul Pierce's wallet right there. Honestly, kind of love to see it. I'm not surprised. We know that Gary Gensler is going after all the ETH Max people. Kim Kardashian was in that suit, as well as Floyd Mayweather. So it just goes to show you, I think, don't fuck around with unregistered securities, kids. Do you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, the problem with these celebrities that participate in these events or these marketing stunts, whether it's a big conference or just a tweet, is that they're not there because they believe in the principles of it. They're there because, again, obviously someone is paying them to put their face alongside of that brand. And the sad part about it is that these normies out there, they see something similar to Bitcoin because it's in the crypto space, and all of a sudden they start jumping in because yeah. If Paul Pierce said it's cool, it must be. Do your own research, because these guys aren't there to make you rich. They're there to leave you holding their ETH Max bags. And honestly, I thought I was well versed on these altcoins, shitcoins, and I never heard about ETH Max until last week. And so it just goes to show you that
Did you not remember this from the Bitcoin conference in 2021?
I do not.
Oh,
Tell me
geez, they
something.
had Floyd Mayweather speaking at the conference,
Was
and
that
then
what he was talking about? Oh,
he straight up was like, "Yo, but I want to talk to you guys about this ETH Max." And
okay. I remember.
yes, straight up rug pulled, and just tried, and it got booed. The whole crowd was just booing him. It was actually awesome. As a Floyd hater, was loving that.
That's not his best moment, but he has plenty of great moments. That's another special episode where we will go into how you're lost on your judgment on Money Mayweather.
A conversation for another time, but absolutely. I mean, just to really round out this ETH Max story, it's a beautiful thing when you hear about these shit coins go down and you barely know what it is to begin with. So honestly, a waste of brain space, but just wanted to, take a quick little dunk on Paul Pierce. Speaking of dunks, the All-Star game last weekend. We'll start with the All-Star game, but then I want to really talk about the slam dunk contest. The All-Star game, did you watch it?
Because of the draft format, that was probably one of the first ones I ended up watching 5 to 10 years. It's I just wanted to see how the pickup ball style would how the players would react to that, how the fans would react. That was pretty much the most interesting part of the whole show.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I didn't even bother watching it. I to your actual point, even what was it last year when they did the draft the first time and it was KD and LeBron? I watched the draft, but I did not watch the All-Star game.
Yeah. But it's so funny because I've always wanted to see when they do it live. And the worst part about it is that in order to not hurt feelings, NBA is so political. Let's just leave it at that. That they had to reverse and didn't start with the starters draft. They wanted to start with the reserves, and it's like flipping the script doesn't change the dynamic that the last guy picked in the reserves is pretty much the last all-star, and no one's really upset about that. Even the last all-star, you're one of the top 24 players, 24 to 28, considering injuries in the league. Doesn't matter if you're last among the rich, among the elite. I think it's a nice thing, but the NBA is always looking at ways to kind of balance the playing field and like make everyone feel good. These guys make enough money; they don't need to feel any better. But it was a fun show. I like the draft part. I thought it was a little clunky because it was live, but you've seen what happened last week with us. Anything can go when a live event is happening.
What are you talking about? This show is perfect. We had almost 600 viewers on our premiere episode. So
and I missed them. I missed all those 600 viewers for about 10 whole minutes, as I thought my Wi-Fi could handle live streaming. But I got the Ethernet cord, 50 feet, going to my modem, getting 400 megabits per second. I am not dying today.
So I've been trying to find this tweet that I thought was hysterical. So I didn't see it live, but LeBron drafted Kyrie. And we talked a little bit last week about, the whole dynamic of does D'Lo is going to be a free agent. Kyrie's a free agent. Kyrie may just end up coming to LA in free agency. And that hug, like they lingered, man. Like Ron and Kyrie lingered. And then
you saw who was in the background.
Someone posted a still, Luka just like,
that's
hey,
so funny.
You're with me, right? At least for right now, you're with me. Don't go back to your ex.
But you saw what was happening on the bench, though, because on the bench, the All-Star game, Kyrie was doing a little like tap on the shoulder, like, who was that? So it's like, in my opinion, that look, the optics of that makes for a funny meme. But I think you can't ignore the natural chemistry that Kyrie and LeBron have, and you can only hope that that he can develop that type of chemistry with Luka in a third of a season. But legacy is legacy, and I think that after this season, there is a strong consideration for him to be moving on to sunnier pastures.
Yeah. But beyond that, though, I mean, like, to your point about the whole thing, like, yeah, it made for a really good meme, but it was probably a whole lot of nothing. Like, I mean, that's really just, I think, that defines the All-Star game in a nutshell. Like, oh, Jason Tatum, you won the Kobe MVP award. Like, congrats, bro. That's the only MVP award you're going to win this year.
And send me a text.
I said it, Mark. I said it. Jason Tatum ain't winning no MVP.
Send me a text message to Kobe's cell phone. Like I don't know if that was a meme or if he really did that for the All-Star game or for the playoffs from a long.
I think it was the finals.
Year.
I think
it was the conference finals.
Yeah,
okay,
like finals because they lost to the Warriors.
Oh, okay, the finals. So I saw a meme where someone overwrote his text and it's like, hey man, I did it. And he won the All-Star game MVP and sending that message to Kobe's phone. I'm like, yeah. And I heard, of course I didn't watch it, but yeah, he scored 55 points, a record amount in the All-Star game. Like, talk about Jack mode. Like, save some for the rest of us. My goodness.
Yeah, no, honestly, like if you're playing in the All-Star game and it just one of the guys goes off for 55, like, are you sitting there like, yo, like that's so annoying. Like I could have gone off for 55 if I just fucking never passed the ball around.
It's a mess. It's a bad show. And for that reason, I think they are trying to expand their scope, pull out gimmicks in ways that they can make the show a little more palatable or watchable for the mainstream audience. And I think that's probably a good segue into the dunk contest because you probably had some thoughts on that. What did you think about? I mean, when you look at the highlights, the dude put it down. Mac McClung. Is that how he's Mac or Max?
Mac. But I want to just like go back for like even further for a second, specifically about the dunk contest though, because if I'm honest, like when I was a kid, All-Star weekend, I just look forward to the dunk contest. I didn't care about the All-Star game. I wanted to see the dunk contest. and it was like on its last life, so it seemed, when like the Dwight Howard, Nate Robinson sort of rivalry turned into like, okay, now neither of them are doing the dunk contest anymore, right? And then all of a sudden Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon like potentially revive it for a second, and then it just like once again has faded away. I think Mac balled out, and I don't want to take anything away from him, but like none of the other guys were really that spectacular from the highlights that I watched. And it it's almost like you kind of feel like the NBA is begging people to give them a participant here, especially because, dude, Mac McClung, I believe right now is playing for the Philadelphia 76ers G League team. Like he's a two-way player, and I'm not knocking him. Like Scottie Pippen Jr., who played like in the Rising Stars game, is a two-way player as well. So like I'm not knocking that. I'm just like we couldn't get like just like the stars out. Like Mac McClung balled out. Like he would have gone toe to toe with like the Zach LaVine, Aaron Gordon in their prime. Like if insert him into that slam dunk contest, and you're literally dealing with a three-headed monster. So I'm not trying to take away from it. I'm just like his competition. Like that's the best we got. Like this is the
What
NBA.
you're saying is that even still, two-way player, you're saying that he's essentially not the scope of the selection criteria that you're looking for. You're looking for players that you recognize
Like
on a
I'm a
regular
star
basis.
fucker. Like I'm a star fucker. Like I want like, dude. When was the last time, excluding the slam dunk contest, that Mac McClung had his dunks on SportsCenter Top 10? And he's had a few. It's not like he's unheard of, but dude, like John
Did
Morant,
he
bro,
played
I
in
see
NBA?
you dunking on fools every single night. Like, how could you not want that? Like, dude, look at the pedigree of players historically who have won the slam dunk contest. Dr. J, MJ, Kobe. Yes, I picked three of the all-time greats just to emphasize the freaking point.
Right.
Like,
Did
there
you
was a.
did you mention Vince Carter?
I was literally the next name out of my
Dominique
tongue.
Wilkins?
Like,
Like there are great players that have participated in this event in the past. And I think this is a dynamic. When you interviewed me about the my sports article, how Bitcoin will affect the sports economy. I think that fiat essentially is affecting the sports economy in a way where, mind you, I like that players can make truckloads of money, more money than Jerry West or Dr. J could have dreamed of in one season, let alone a career. But the NBA has to realize that with all the money that they're pulling in, they're not creating an incentive for people to either play hard in the All-Star game, nor to show up and compete in a dunk contest. And so, in my opinion, the fame, the glory, they have millions of followers on Twitter and Instagram. They have shoe deals, they have commercials, things that Dominique Wilkins, as good as he was, barely had, if at all, back in the day. So anytime you get a chance to be in the spotlight, for sure, you're going to let people see what you got. So it's a matter of hyper it's a matter of hyper exposure for the player, and for that reason, to say, hey, you want to come out and bring it, participate in this legacy event just like Dr. J did. It's like, nah, I've been on camera more than Dr. J has ever thought to be. And I think that's what it boils down to. If you pay the players to do it, they will come. But there's no incentive. LeBron's never been in a dunk contest, and he would have won every single one of them. You see the stuff that he does in warmups. You see the
well,
stuff he did in the
so
All-Star game and games.
that was
Still,
my next. That was my next question. Is like, LeBron was really the first great player ever. Rudy, you are just killing
how
it.
cute.
Um,
We're live.
Straight up, straight up, he is the first player who really was like, no. And he
Nope.
even remember the 1 year at the All-Star game where I believe he was watching the dunk contest and then announced like, oh, Dallas next year, you mark my words, I'm gonna be in the dunk contest, and then he bailed on it. So I wonder if like there's still this sort of ability for, all right, yeah, get the fuck out of here. Go. I wonder. All right, to get to my point, did LeBron ruin it for everyone else by not
Yes,
doing the dunk
yes, he
contest?
set the trend. He set a path. Just like there's a and when I say did he ruin it, I don't want to say ruin. I said he set a trend of this is what star or above average NBA players path towards. We path towards not participating in these events because of whether you want to say injury risk, whether you want to say not enough money, whether you want to say it's too much. Yeah, it's pretty much injury risk or not enough money. In my opinion, that if Zion were to come out there, once he's healthy and participate in a dunk contest, I feel that trend of superstars would stop. If Zion came, John Morant's for sure going to come. You're going to get all of those guys of that generation. But again, when the alpha takes a certain path, it's generally he's going to pull the rest of the crowd with him. Even great players who stand in their own light, it's like you almost it's weird. I've never been in that environment, but from the people that I've associated with that have been, it's a fraternity, and you don't really rock the boat by doing your own thing, which is what sometimes it makes Kyrie Irving such an interesting person, because as you know he is with the players, but at the same time he is also his own person, but based on all his stances that he's had. And it's an interesting dynamic to see him versus LeBron, who is the stoic ideal NBA face. He doesn't do anything wrong. He doesn't go against the NBA. But yeah, that trend needs to come from on high and needs to be one of the top three players in the NBA saying, you know what, I'm going to shake things up and I'm going to show up and I'm going to show you what I can really do. And then it'll be another generation back, in my opinion, the way Dominique and MJ and Spud Webb used to do. It would be a great thing.
Give me your like dream dunk contest for 2024. Who are your 4 participants?
Yeah, Zion, John Morant. Gosh, I've gotten to that age where I'm focused more on that mid range. It's so funny, as the dunk contest went away, I started saying I want to tune into the 3-point contest. This is actually probably the first year I didn't watch the 3-point contest. But I would say, let me look at just teams and see if I could. Levine, I don't know how his knee is
Oh,
after
it's
that
fine. I can't think
ACL.
of 2 other like high flying dunkers right now.
If
Like,
Levine is healthy, yeah, if Levine is healthy, I would
but
say
he's
him.
not. He's not like he doesn't have that oomph like he had when he was younger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like he is transitioned at an earlier age to being more of a mid-range shooter than like Vince Carter had to.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I'm looking at all these. Oh, Anthony Edwards. There you go, Anthony Edwards. Those three, and gosh, I know I'm missing like one guy that's just like crazy. No, those three, and then you can't go into.
Giannis.
Yeah, no, it's just kind of. I don't. He can't explode like that. He's sort of like it'll almost be watching like Artist Gilmore do the dunk contest. It's just like you're just long and okay, so what? You really want to see. That's why Mac McClung was so dynamic. He's six. They list him at 6'2", 180, but he looks like he's 6 feet and a half. It's just and the white boy dynamic. Remember Brent Berry won that dunk contest, and it was like, whoa, like Brent Berry won the dunk contest. and he glided from the free throw line. Now you got the white boy who's 6'1.5", and doing the double clutch. I'm like, that was nice. If he had an NBA contract, I would give it to him as more of a legitimate win. But because he's kind of like a D-leaguer, I almost think like, there are guys that I played against in the Drew League that could be like, oh yeah, like he could go into the dunk contest and just do all kinds of stuff. So I just feel like this is the inflation of the NBA. They have to expand in order to maintain, which is kind of like the fiat system. I just wish that if they were able to gather, pick from their actual talent pool, pool of talent, rather than having to go into the G League, or have to go into, let's pull some college players that's going to get drafted and let's put them in the dunk contest. Let's get this guy off the street and let's put him in. It's like, when does it stop? So I'd say those three players. I'm sure I could figure out another one in 10 minutes.
Donovan Mitchell.
Can he? Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I feel like he would fail people.
I found like clips of Zach LaVine like throwing it down in Chicago, so I may need to like eat my words.
Yeah, no, LaVine, like from this year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, Zach LaVine dunks 2023, and I've seen like some pretty nasty ones.
Yeah, so. I think it's LaVine. That's the fourth one. Oh, it would be nasty,
man. I got a solution to throw your way on how do we fix the dunk contest.
Okay.
So why is it like the players are totally cool playing the All-Star game? Why is that?
They're okay with playing the All-Star game because there's no risk. There's no risk. They're not exerting themselves. It's kind of like a glorified shoot around.
No. Kobe Bryant broke his nose in the All-Star game, so you can't tell me there's no risk.
What year
I'll tell you why.
That?
No, I'll tell you why.
Huh?
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why people like actually like want to be an All-Star, because they get a contractual bonus from the teams. They usually have some sort of a bonus when they make like certain NBA
first team all NBA,
first team, and it's not even just the teams; it's also their sponsors. Because now all of a sudden, this player is reaching a new level of sort of like notoriety, so the sponsorship with them becomes more valuable. So sponsor contracts will even have these type of bonuses tied in. So players are very like excited to do that. What would be really, really, really smart is if one of these NBA agents that works at like a CAA that has the department with marketing, where they have clients that are also the sponsors of the NBA Slam Dunk Contest. Like, who's the sponsor this year? It used to be Sprite.
I was just going to say Sprite. Let's just
Kia.
Kia's the MVP.
Kia is the MVP. Well, remember the year Blake Griffin jumped over the Kia? It was because Kia was the sponsor.
Oh, that's true.
So if they worked with that sponsor to then potentially have a larger bonus, make the bonus worth it, or like have it contractually tied as like, if you participate in the slam dunk contest, like you get an extra whatever chunk of money from build it into these contracts. So
but then it's like, okay, how do you pick the four players who get in? They'll be suing people and say, hey, why didn't I get into the dunk contest?
But that's what you want. Like, I would rather players like clawing over each other,
right,
to be like, no, I want to play in the dunk contest, than like them having to be like, all right, who we got in the G League that we can just throw in here,
right?
And like, yo, Philadelphia, you got to give him a 2-way contract now. Like, you gotta, like the dude for Mac McClung. I saw another crazy stat. Like, it's $100K purse to win the slam dunk contest. He has in his career made $100,000. So he doubled his career earnings in one night. Like, again, I don't want to knock him because he was excellent. Like, he is just a victim of circumstance, if anything.
Well, I was going to say, if you pay them, they will come. It should be $5 million. It should be $2 to $5 million. Imagine that. Imagine all the people. They have 8 dunkers. But again, it got to the point where it was lethargic. It was long-winded. Remember back in the day, you remember trying to do the dunk contest on the video games back in the day. If you missed, your shot was up, in the 80s. you had 3 dunks. You had 2 chances to get 1 dunk. If you missed it, you get a 0. And so they they've softened the rules. And when you soften the rules, that's probably another reason why. I remember they started making it so, oh, you can just keep on going until you finish your dunk. And I remember like Antonio Harvey on the Lakers kept on trying to dunk and he couldn't finish one. And I'm like, well, this is embarrassing. The first Laker I've seen, this was before Kobe Bryant. And it's like, he's not even throwing it down. Like, what's going on? And it's like, so they changed the rules to accommodate the players that want to go for the craziest dunk, but they need 5 chances to do it. And then it just, time is money, and people start saying, this is I'm going to get bored waiting for this guy to actually complete a field goal. So maybe more stringent rules, a better protocol.
3 strikes and then you're out. Like you get 3 attempts. That's really what it should be.
Why
like
not?
Make it like keep it stupid simple. But again, by the way, I looked it up. Currently sponsored by AT&T. So
Cantillon effect, but they're not paying it. Where's the Cantillionaire money? They're sponsored.
I really think like it's as simple as one of these agents starting to negotiate into the contract, whether it's because like the sponsor can cough up more money or whatever, but like, or a player is just like, yo, I need more money. And like someone needs to be creative about like, all right, like I can get you like another $100,000 bonus money or I can get you another $500,000 in bonus money if you're doing the slam dunk contest. So
$500,000. I just feel like it's gotta be.
Like that's why players like fight over each other and get upset when they're not like the alternates, because at least like even if you're the alternate to come in, like you still qualify for those bonuses just the same as if you're a starter.
That's right.
Although you might get a bigger bonus. Like you'd be smart to negotiate a bigger bonus for being a starter. But I digress. We are now going to talk about the main story, unless there's anything else from All-Star Weekend you want to discuss.
I'm happy to
hyping up that 3-point shootout. How was Julius Randle in the 3-point shootout?
I didn't watch. I told you I didn't watch it. I'm glad I didn't. Julius.
Can I be honest? I didn't watch jack shit this weekend. I just saw like clips on Instagram and Twitter.
It's fun to watch the draft. The draft is funny.
I mean, it's just maybe when you're a kid, you really like it, like the spectacle of all of your favorite players, like all on the court at the same time. But
go back to the 80s, go back to the Magic Johnson All-Star games that happened at the end in the summer. Go back to the All-Star games in the 80s, the official ones. They were balling. Like Isaiah Thomas and Magic were running up and down the court, just like it looked like a video game, like them running up and like throwing no-look passes to Mark Aguirre and Michael Jordan, and Larry Bird was running the lanes like that white boy can run, and then bam, hits a 21-footer on fast break in 1986. Like that was basketball, and that was basketball for fun. They just played for fun. It's different now, and I understand times change, and honestly, they play like that in pickup games. They play like that in the Drew League. It's the All-Star game that's kind of a little weird. I don't understand why, because they do come hard when the cameras aren't on. It's a dynamic that I haven't figured out yet, but again, I'm not in those circles. Maybe it's just, they just need a break, and the season's hard enough. I don't know.
Maybe. You want to know what my favorite like MJ All-Star story is?
Go ahead.
And I think this speaks to the lack of the killer instinct in this generation of NBA players. Doug Collins was telling this story one time where he talked about, I forget what year it was, but coach at the All-Star game, MJ's on the team, and the East is down, and it's third quarter, and they're down big. Like they're down like 20 plus points. And someone whispers about, the player bonus that the NBA gives out to the players. And MJ asked, how much is the bonus for the winning team? And it was like 6 figures, and like somewhere in the 100,000s, like not like crazy.
Yeah.
And then how much is that bonus for the losing team? And it was like less than half of that. And MJ just took the fucking ball and like he balled out. He was not going to take the smaller bonus. Like straight up, like there was like a sense of that like competitive spirit of like, yo, I want the bigger bonus. Like, show me the incentives. Like, literally, these players,
you pay them, they will come.
Yeah, exactly. So
That's the moral of the story. Every year, we'll always talk about that.
Yeah, just pay like make the bonus more realistic for the dunk contest, and then we're cooking.
They get
But
enough money from Kia. Might as
I mean,
well.
look, to get John Morant to do it, I think the bonus, like to win it, you're gonna need to pay out like a few $1,000,000. You're talking about players who are about to make $50 million a year.
Which they should. There's no reason why they shouldn't. It's
I think some of them should make more, to be honest with you, but
we can
I
talk
think
about
it's
that.
ridiculous. Well, on different episode, we're gonna stay on track for
Yeah.
today. All right. So let's talk NBA buyouts galore. And I'm pulling up the tweet right now. I had it up, but I can't find the tab because I have way too many tabs open. But
I
that's
sent it to you in private
no,
chat.
I got it up now. Yeah. All right. So Bobby Marks on Twitter essentially let everyone know that after Will Barton was bought out, he is the ninth player after this year's NBA trade deadline, making it a record for the most buyouts post NBA trade deadline. You have Russell Westbrook, Kevin Love, um, Bolmaro, the other Holiday brother, Danny Green, Pat Bev, Terrence Ross. I forget who Jackson was.
Reggie Jackson.
Reggie Jackson. That's right. Reggie Jackson, and now Will Barton. Um, we'll talk individually on some of these transactions, but like overall, let's talk first just initial feelings on the fact that, players seem to be calling the shots. You on top of, the record for NBA players being bought out post trade deadline, we are continuing to see a growing number of players demand or request trades. Kyrie Irving most recently on that list. We even had Thomas Bryant from the Lakers demanding a trade. Like, and look, players have long demanded trades, sometimes publicly, like Carmelo Anthony very publicly told the Denver Nuggets, like, yo, trade me to the Knicks. Freaking James
Charles
Harden.
Barkley, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Totally. But like, don't even forget like James Harden last year stuffing the towel in his sweats to like make it seem like he's all out of shape with a Rockets he traded. Then all of a sudden he's skinny. It's like, yeah, because he literally stuffed a towel in his sweats. Like, you guys are idiots for falling for that. But like, it's a tradition in the NBA almost. So let's just talk about this growing demand that keeps coming out. Like, what are your thoughts?
I mean, as Bitcoiners, I think that we should value people for working towards their incentives. And these contracts work both ways. The player has to come show up, and then you pay them. Um, if the player informs the payee, the owning class, that, hey, I don't want to show up, I'm not going to give my full effort, you should look for another place for me because I no longer like the way this situation works for me. It's no longer fits my worldview. You as the owner can try to play slave games and say, no, you're bound to me, you're going to play. But you can't, and from an Austrian, going back to Murray Rothbard, you cannot compel a person to work. That person can only work if it comes from within. So you can threaten him with the worst things possible, but at the end of the day, if he doesn't want to work, you're not going to get the best from him. So those are the kind of things that I just say, what's happening right now where players demand trades, all the teams have done a good job of mitigating those bad relationships with draft picks, with younger talent. I think it's a good thing.
So, I mean, this has honestly been a conversation that has happened ever since, and I forget the exact year, but it started in Major League Baseball when free agency was introduced, and then all of a sudden it sort of gave the players the freedom to essentially reject the contract of the team that drafted them. But otherwise, historically, like players, once you got drafted, unless you were cut or traded, like you were on that team. So I'm with you that you're not going to work. You're not going to play well for a team that you just don't want to participate on. Like Kobe very famously like demanded his trade, and the Lakers worked
Chicago.
with him.
Hmm.
Um, so I think there's like on the side of, is this acceptable behavior? Like, of course, like you brought it up before the show. Like, dude, the owners and management have been trading players too. Like, why can't a player demand it? I think part of it, like, I don't like the part of it where it's like, I want to only go to like these markets, because then it starts to really turn into a competitive advantage for the LAs, the Miamis, the New Yorks, like maybe some of the Texas markets, like Chicago. So it's tough, in my opinion, when I love the parity that we see in the NBA right now. We'll see if Jaw stays in Memphis. Like I don't expect him to leave yet. Um, well, like everyone was like holding their breath when Giannis was deciding, and like
And
Giannis,
he stayed.
he stayed, but like he stayed because the example has been set by some players like Kobe, like Dirk, like Tim, who just like they punched in, they punched out with that team, and like that was it.
I think
Um,
he saw that his team had the best chance to win, and that monetary advantage.
Giannis,
Yes, I think his team. He saw his team as like they have a chance to win.
any team that Giannis went to would have a chance to win the following year,
I think. Well, also remember that they also had the opportunity to pay him the most. So
right?
teams that when a player is on that one team, they have they have the option for that extra year, that fifth year, as opposed to if you go play the market, the most that you can sign for another team is a 4 year deal. So it always the home team is always has the strategic advantage. So players that want to leave, they're leaving guaranteed money on the table. So it's got to be at least 20% better worldview situation lifestyle that they see by going somewhere else, because you don't know what happens 5 years from now. And you know,
Look at
I
Chris Paul, dude, cashed in. Chris Paul cashed in perfectly. Like
Chris Paul.
I'm just trying to piss you off, but like you're
You
you're
did.
aren't you glad though? Aren't you glad that we're
40
past that
million.
point of like the NBA salary cap inflating so much where like all of these top tier players were taking the 2 year deals, because it was just smarter. Hey, take this 2 year deal now, because if you're locked in for 4 or even 5 years, that is going to screw you over, and you're going to be locked in at this low rate versus in the expectation of the salary cap will continue to balloon, at least in this short term, because they're not distributing the money for the new TV rights deal the right way. Like that's how freaking Kevin Durant ended up on the Warriors. Like
Right.
I blame the NBA entirely for botching the way they rolled out the money. So
I mean, again, I like change. I like to see, there's something fun to me about seeing Kevin Durant go from OKC to the Golden State to Brooklyn to Phoenix. It's just I like to see players in different situations and seeing how they mesh with other players with them. We've always played, with the NBA Live or NBA 2K. We always put, I remember putting, Clyde Drexler back on the mid '90s teams, back on the Blazers, or maybe put Kobe Bryant on a team with another guard. So it's
oh dude,
like
of course. Yeah,
it's
in the new 2K you can play as like old generations. So I
right.
right now have a franchise mode of like my 03, 04 Lakers, and I am gonna I'm winning the title with that team. That's damn sure.
Well, you better don't lose to the Pistons.
Oh, um,
Good teams often prevail.
how much though, like as fans, yeah, it's really fun to see this dynamic as people who I think appreciate basketball on a more nuanced level, who like have participated and played in these sort of video games where you can recreate what the rosters are and like see how players gel and how fun it is and whatnot. How much of it now coming to reality do you think is tied back to the fact that like you're seeing a lot of like the players have these bonds from like the AAU days, because you got the AAU super teams that are just pipelines to future NBA players. And then everyone like wants to reconnect because like you grew up playing ball with that guy, so he knows you on a way different level than Stockton ever knew Malone. To be honest with
100%.
you,
Yeah, I mean, look at. I mean, I'm still playing with my buddy from high school who I started playing with at 15 years old, and although we're both slower, there's no one I trust with an open 3-pointer more than him. And it's like as much as I can draw a double team penetrating, I know that if all he has to do is be open for a second and a half, and he's making it. And it's like that chemistry, that trust, that comes from playing with people for 25 years. And that didn't happen back in the day when AAU, pre my generation. I think a little bit AAU really started around the time I was in high school, junior high school. And so now you see it exponentially grew, once was in my 20s. And you see all these players now, the ones that are, grew up in America. There's just such a camaraderie, and you want to have a chance to play and be rich with your homies that you were dreaming about the NBA with. And it's like you guys were talking about this 15 years ago, and now look at you. It's like, and it sort of gets rid of the possibility of workplace discomfort, where you have to deal with difficult people. It's like, well, I'm just playing with my bro. And that's a chemistry that, like you already said, even Stockton and Malone couldn't even have that because they met each other when they were 22.
exactly. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think this might be a Mandela effect thing because I say this story to some people, and some people just don't remember it, and some people do. But there was a commercial. I want to say it was Gatorade, but it might have been Sprite. Um, in the 2000s, and I believe it was. I know it was Kevin Garnett and Tim Duncan. And I'm forgetting who the third player was, but all three of these players were just sort of like playing basketball in the modern day, doing their thing. And then they got like it was like a Christmas story where they were in the present, they were taken to the past, they were shown sort of how the players in the past played, and like how like fucking hard they went through pain, how they didn't care about the money, they weren't complaining, bitching, this or that, like they just played for the love of the game. But then they go to the future and they see how the way they have behaved then transforms the next generation. And I kid you not, bro, you have like players who are just like, oh, like, whoa, 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 like, no, like, I want to just be famous. Like, I don't care about the NBA. They changed the rules. Like, there's a 4-point line, there's a bigger basket.
And
No
this
one's
commercial
really
came
like
out when?
this in the 2000s. It was like when Kevin Garnett and Tim Duncan were the two best power forwards in the league. Like that's how long ago it was.
That's
But
funny.
it's like, dude, it like I still remember it to this day, and it's funny to me because it's like, oh, so that version of the future actually kind of feels like it came true to me. Like what? Like that's why I'm like,
They're
I
shooting
I
4-pointers
ask people,
nowadays. Yeah. I
dude, I
mean,
ask people if they've like seen this commercial, and some people have. Like I had a barber who clearly don't go to the barber anymore, but like my old barber, he used to. He said he had seen it, he remembered it. It might have just been like yanking my chain, but no one else seems like, do you remember that commercial?
not at all.
Yeah,
I'm
see,
thinking like, could the third power forward be like Antonio McDyess or something? Like, I'm
it's
wondering.
someone that like I've looked it up, and I think I actually found like I I figured out what to search for, and I
Mm,
think I found like an explanation of it. I can't find it anywhere on YouTube, but if
great.
I ever do, we are gonna watch it on this
Okay.
show
Okay.
because
We'll
it's
watch it
like
on the show.
eerie.
That's too funny.
Um, should we dive into some of these transactions, some of these buyouts? Because I think
Yeah.
some of
We
them
have.
are notable, like
Yeah.
Russ and Kevin Love, and some of them I think will be for title contenders. So
I mean, I think the most intriguing one is the Clipper deal. The Clippers, who they got rid of they got rid of Reggie, they got rid of John Wall, and they brought in Westbrook. And when I'm thinking about this, and you know, looking at the
just
stats.
to real quick, just to set the stage. So Russell Westbrook was traded from the Lakers to the Utah Jazz in that 3-team deal. Never left LA, was bought out by the Jazz, made this deal with the Clippers. Okay, continue.
That's right. Yeah. And I was looking into this deal and I was looking at the stats. And, Westbrook, his performance wasn't really, I would say, almost identical to Reggie Jackson. If Reggie Jackson, I would say Jackson's slightly more efficient. Jackson's shooting 35% from the 3-point line versus 29 from Westbrook. Both of them were shooting about 42% from the field. The assists were way better for Westbrook. But then you think about John Wall. John Wall was playing 22 minutes a game and averaged 5 assists a game. In comparison, Russell Westbrook was playing 29 minutes a game and got 7.5. So Wall at 11 points and 5 assists in 22 minutes. Westbrook was at 16 and 7.5. I'm thinking these guys are kind of playing at the same level. Reggie Jackson was shooting 35% from the field, 11 points, 3.5 assists. What do they need to do that for? But then I look at the contracts. And then remember, John Wall was getting paid $40 million from the Houston Rockets, and he ends up going back. They trade him away, and they end up bringing him back and waiving him. But the Clippers end up getting rid of that $6 million that they were paying, $6.5 million. Reggie Jackson was getting paid almost $11 million by the Clippers. Almost $12 million. And then you have Westbrook, who was getting paid $47 million, most in the NBA. Now the Clippers are paying him $800,000, and they're not paying any of that money that they traded for, that they got rid of with John Wall and Reggie Jackson. They just made themselves basically $6 million in a equivalent player with room to potentially pick up another buyout, if they wanted to. This was a contractual move. In my opinion, Westbrook's not going to save his career coming to the Clippers. In my opinion, I think he's going to sink more into obscurity. I was talking to another buddy of mine who I think we should have on the show in the future. The Clippers are one of those rare teams that don't need a point guard, in my opinion, that they have enough usage from their two wings with Leonard and PG-13. And Westbrook is going to end up being a backup, in my opinion, to Bones Highland, who is sort of like this younger, more younger version of Westbrook that they probably want to see more of because he's 23 and Westbrook's 34. So Westbrook is playoff resiliency. He's going to be, when people get hurt, you get a chance. But I don't think Westbrook's not making or breaking the Clippers season. So that was a long-winded one. But long story short, the Clippers made some good money deals. And Westbrook is going to sink into more obscurity until next season if he finds somewhere to play.
Did you see the report that, the expectation is that he will eventually join the starting lineup?
No, I don't see that happening. If it does happen, I don't see it being successful. I think Terrence Mann is a better fit.
So I also just want to point out the fact that, there is a degree where, yes, John Wall was courted, I believe, to come to the Clippers, and they kind of talked about what that could be. And we saw what it turned into, like a whole lot of nothing.
Yep.
But, Westbrook very similarly. Oh, no. What's going on?
You sound fine, dude.
Okay. Yeah, everything looks frozen on my screen. Anyways, so like Paul George was Russ's teammate in OKC, really pushed for Russ to come here and courted him, and there were a lot of meetings, not just with those two, but Kawhi and Russ as well, and Ballmer and management. So there have been extensive conversations. It's funny to me that Russ just never left LA, never had to set up shop in Utah, and is just able to sort of keep his same house. He's from LA. So I think he's going to be taking this personal a little bit, but what I look forward to is seeing, I think, how he handles playing in LA with a chip on his shoulder. Because he came out and said he won't go to LA to play for the Clippers, I think years ago. because like he's a Lakers fan, and like if you grow up in LA, a Lakers fan, like there's a certain way we look at the Clippers. So um, it'll be interesting to see how he responds. I expect Russ to respond like with aggression. I just don't think one All-Star weekend was enough for him to get a jump shot.
That's really what it boils down to, and that's as much aggression. I mean, I've watched enough Laker games, not every game, but I've watched enough to see that he has aggression. He's always had aggression. He ain't never going to. He's extremely athletic. He's still extremely fast. He cannot shoot off the dribble. He cannot shoot spot up. He cannot shoot mid range, long range, anywhere besides besides near the basket finishing a layup, and that's good. It made him very successful, but again, it's a limitation that most people, when you get to be 34, I'll tell you, my jump shot became way better in my mid 30s than I was in my 20s, and I'm like, oh wow, look at this. Now, of course, I couldn't jump as high, but as you play, every time you shoot the ball, that's muscle memory, lodged into however your physiology works. And for some reason, even guys like, oh, Blake Griffin, he's just a dunker. What did you see him doing in Detroit and New Jersey? He started knocking down threes as his jumping went away. 3-point shooting.
It's the inevitable development of every hyper athletic guard.
Magic Johnson made 100 threes his last season. I think he shot like 35% from 3-point range, whereas his all the 80s he couldn't hit the broad side of the barn.
Terrible 3-point shooter early in his career.
And I think
Vince
he
Carter,
would have been
another
great.
one.
Jason Kidd, another one. Jason Kidd was bad, and he ended up becoming, through hook or crook by cumulative numbers, the top 3-point, all 3 points made or something, top 3, top 2. When he retired, he was up there in 3-pointers made.
I'm gonna look that up, but let's keep it going because we're running tight on time, and we still have a few more of these we need to go over.
Yeah.
So I want to talk Kevin Love, because Kevin Love now signed with the Miami Heat. So this is really interesting to me because, and it's not because Kevin Love got traded. Like I wanted to reconfirm that. I needed to confirm that 6 times. I was like, I didn't see a deal for Kevin Love, and I was so confused by it. And I wasn't the only one. I want to pull up this little quote that we got from Bleacher Report from Cavs center Jared Allen. I was told he was going for milk and cigarettes, and he just never came back. I had to share that with everyone because it had me cackling when I saw that. But the Cavs were the team that bought him out, which is great. Like they're not doing poorly. He's just not playing.
He's not needed.
But you're talking about a team that's going to be playing in the playoffs, bro. Like, what are you?
Not needed. He's not needed. They have their rotation. He is not needed. He's better off somewhere else. I don't know if they're picking up someone else, if they're adding someone from the G League. He said they're giving him an opportunity to play, and he's going to a team that could use his 3-point shooting. Honestly, I don't know how good he is. I haven't seen him play this season, and may have seen him play one game last season. We don't get too many Cleveland Cav games out in LA. But I will say that if he has an inkling of what he used to be, which was a 3 and player. I don't know about defense, but he can rebound and he can shoot some threes. That will help the Heat out as they're trying to position themselves for the playoffs. I think it's a nice add. It can't hurt the Heat, but I don't think it's going to make or break their season.
So he was playing 20 minutes a game, coming off the bench. He was shooting about 35, a touch more than 35% from 3. So solid. You're not hating those. And 20 minutes a game, he's getting you almost 6 defensive rebounds a game, with another one on the offensive glass. So he's not insignificant on the boards in his limited time. Like he's doing the things that you need him to do. But let's be honest here. Miami obviously doesn't have as tough of a front court as the Cavs, but he wasn't really needed there. So what makes us think that he's really needed here?
Again, 3-point shooting possibility. I don't know that Is what's his name? The 6'8" white guy still in the Heat? Still in the Heat? That he got pushed
Duncan
out of the
Robinson.
rotation.
Yeah,
He got
Duncan
pushed out
Robinson.
of
He's
the
still there.
rotation. So it's a weird situation where it's like they have the 3-point shooter they need, but then they bring him in. In my opinion, I mean, I look at his stats. He's averaging 7 rebounds a game in 20 minutes. But again, like I said, I didn't see him playing. So the few games that I saw in Cleveland with Cleveland, he was riding the bench the entire time. Maybe they just decided, hey, he's out of the rotation for good, and they say, okay, I'm going somewhere else. Honestly, it's a long time coming. He should have been gone 3 years ago. But sometimes
Mhm.
people stay too long in one city. Damon Lillard.
I cannot believe Udonis Haslem still gets paid NBA money and has played any games this season.
Didn't you tell me that he's one? Weren't you telling me last year that's the enforcer that you need on the bench? That's the
You
type of.
do. You
So
you
what
need you need
can
that
you not believe
veteran.
or can you believe that I was when we first started talking? You were saying like, no, it's more than a coach. Like he has to wear the jersey.
You need someone who wears the jersey telling the young kids what to do. Like you do. Like that is a recipe for every single NBA champion.
So then
And
obviously you say you can't believe it, but I guess because they're not winning anymore. There's no reason for him to have to be there.
he's played in 6 games. Like I don't want to like take up time talking about Haslam,
Please.
but like the fact that he's even suited up is what I find surprising. Like he I guess like when they're getting blown out or blowing people out, he'll play, but
He's keeping
uh,
Jimmy Butler in line for when he talks to the coach in a disrespectful way.
yeah, I mean, again, you need that sometimes with the characters you've got.
What a
But
waste, man.
so
Let me go out there and
I
put someone in line.
looking at what the Heat have, like their bigs off the bench are Haywood Highsmith and Orlando Robinson. So you're stretching out your bigs a little bit. Like Bam plays about 35 a game. He Bam is playing more minutes a game than Jimmy. So I actually think, Kevin Love is probably going to be getting more than 20 minutes a game here.
They're a guard
A-
heavy team. They're all
And
6'5" and under.
and here's an interesting thing. Like I don't know how you feel about Max Struss. I think he's a baller. So he's coming off the bench for the Heat. And then after Struss, you have Oladipo. And then you're probably slotting in like I I'd assume Gabe Vincent's gonna lose some minutes here, and I think Kevin Love will be number 8, but then you have Gabe Vincent as your 9. Like, that's a pretty nice second unit.
They're fine, but they're small. So Kevin Love gives them size, but I don't know about if it's going to help for defensive perspective. And Kevin Love, I was looking at his field goal percentage. He's shooting 38% from the field, 35 from three, which is good. But you would think it would go up. He's 6'8". He's just not a power forward. He's more of just like, I'm just going to stand here in this corner and make threes, assuming you guys leave me open. He's not good size from a traditional size perspective, and I think that's going to hurt the Heat in the long run.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's round this out real quick with just a couple more of these guys. In particular, let's talk Pat Bev, traded to Orlando from Obamba, bought out by the Magic, and then has now signed with the Chicago Bulls. I think this is interesting because they don't have Lonzo. There were those reports coming out that Lonzo may not actually, like he still can't make cuts. So I think I'm probably going to lose that pick on seeing the Bulls sneak into the East playoffs. I think you're probably looking more solidified in that these are the 10 teams in the playoffs. They may switch and jockey for positions, but these are going to be the 10 teams for the Eastern Conference. Um, I don't think Pat Bev gives you the replacement for Lonzo, but I do think on the defensive end, you have some much needed help now. Like Levine can only do so much. DeRozan is solid, but he's not defending in the same way that he was defending even in San Antonio, let alone when he was like locking down guys at Toronto. Um, so like the perimeter D here is scary. Like here's a crazy idea for you though. Like
Beverly Caruso.
oh yeah, that's right. Caruso, I don't even mention him. Like, all right, here's a fun one because we just talked about this guard heavy team. Like if the Heat if the Bulls do manage to get into the play-in and the Heat are still stuck in the play-in, and then they lose that first one, and then they got somehow to play the Bulls in that second one, like I'm picking the Bulls. Like the Bulls would be able to lock down a team like the Heat.
I mean, I think with Levine and DeRozan, they're like a poor man's Clipper team. They don't really need a ball dominant, like, oh, this is how we're going to run it point guard. They are the ball handlers, and the other guy. You would hope that Beverly will turn on his 3-point shot, which he didn't with the Lakers. Of course, it never really happened.
No one ever does when they come to the Lakers. They always do it before and after.
100%. So I think he'll shoot well as a spot up, but he's not required to handle the ball. Westbrook should have went there, but wasn't meant to be.
All right, I pick Pat Beverly. Give us one more of these 9 buyouts that intrigues you, and if there isn't one, that's totally cool. I have one more that we can just quickly throw out, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I don't know where Jackson went. Did he go to Charlotte?
He got traded to Charlotte, and then
they bought him out, and he's now with Denver. That's probably a cool one. Denver has had history with being injury prone. Jamal Murray. They've traded away Will Barton. I think that they could use a little bit of firepower off the bench. I was always a Reggie Jackson fan. I don't watch him too much, but ever since he was backing up Westbrook on the Thunder, I'm like, this guy should play more. So I think he will be the most impactful out of all of these buyouts is Reggie Jackson to the Denver Nuggets.
I buy that to a degree. So I'm with you that like when he came onto my radar as Russ's backup, I thought this dude is a baller, like OKC doing it again, like drafting these like incredible young talented players. And then he goes to Detroit, but he's not a backup in Detroit. He's a starter. And he wasn't very good as a starter. And then he goes to the Clippers, where he's the backup on the Clippers for a little while. And he's balling out playing against the second unit. And then once he moves to the starting lineup, not able to so he is a second unit player. And I say that because so long as Jamal Murray is healthy, yes, I agree with you that the Reggie Jackson transaction makes them better, and they're going to be able to really that. There's a real shot that you're seeing the Nuggets in the finals this year. So long, they are going to live and die by Jamal Murray's knees at this point. But that's just how it works sometimes in the NBA. But I think that if the expectation is that he's going to slide in for Jamal, if Jamal falls and they can still make his deeper run, I think that's where I don't think that that's going to happen.
No one is going to win an NBA championship with a broken team. So if Murray goes down, they lose that series or the next one. So that goes for anyone who loses their top 2 players.
Yeah. I think the last time we really saw a team just get brittled in the playoffs like that. I mean, I'm sure there are countless others, but I think my personal favorite to draw on is that Warriors team against the Raptors when they lost KD and then they lost Steph and then they lost Clay, and it was just all right,
the Bulls lost Scottie Pippen in one finals. I don't know when, but of course they had that black cat, so they were able to persevere. That's why
on that note, though,
one of the greatest.
We are past the hour just a little bit. We have hit everything we wanted to do. Ulric, is there any final words you want to say before we wrap this thing up?
I think this was a success because I have my Ethernet cable, so I say we can go one more week.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Bitcoin Ballers podcast. If you are not subscribed to our channel, please make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. Leave a like, comment, let us know what you thought. And if there's ever anything you guys want us to hash out over here, let us know. Thank you for tuning in.